And if you think finger painting with your enemy sounds like an inappropriate adult pastime, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe, that is Dan, that is Jeff. It's Nu Metal May, gentlemen.
That it is.
And we are talking about Ill Niño tonight.
We are neck deep in Nu Metal May.
So
now,
you're saying
was
this
that
is
enemy
war?
or enema?
I mean, it depends on if you're listening to that Blink-182 album.
Oh, okay.
Or the amazing Ill Niño album.
Ah.
And for my money,
it's Ill Niño.
It's going to be Ill Niño every single time. There's just no option for it to be anything else.
Okay, good, because I didn't want you finger painting with your enema.
I'm just speechless, guys.
So much for me behaving myself.
I am not going to lie. This was very much a surprise for me. Because for my personal history with Ill Niño is Revolution, amazing. Confession, total crap. And then I kind of stopped. So whenever we came back here, I was like, holy shit, they've got a lot of albums out. And I was pleasantly surprised at what I found.
Yeah, this was actually one of the easier discographies to get through. They're pretty easy to listen. They're not a challenge. They sound good. You know, it's nothing overly complex. It's just straight ahead and it's good.
It's an example of a band whose sales pitch actually kind of works in their favor. I remember I found Ill Niño watching Headbanger's Ball, and the video for What Comes Around came on, and the sales pitch was the band tries to be as heavy as possible and as melodic as possible, but at the same time. And I remember hearing this song, watching that video, and then the next day being like, Dan, we got to go to Best Buy. There's this band, Ill Niño, that you have to hear. And it paid off. Every song on that first record is heavy, but we will definitely get into that in a minute.
Well, not every song.
You don't think so?
No. There's this little acoustic-y bullshit at the end.
Well, that's one of those things that, you know.
Right, you just said every song. So I wanted to clarify. It's the nerd in me.
I just want Christian's hair, man. His hair is awesome. It is. That dude's got some locks.
I have nothing to say.
That's because we're either
I feel like my mouth is
gray
open,
or balding or all of the above.
Well, before we start talking about all of the above, I want to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, so if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening. And now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
We love 5-star reviews here on Discography Discussion, and we have a couple to read for you this week. Jeff, you want to read our latest 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts?
That I will. Let's see. We got one from Cassidy 2099. It says passionate discussion from a group of guys who put in the work listening to a band's entire discography every week and giving their pure, unvarnished thoughts. Keep it up, gentlemen.
Well, see, I like to think my thoughts are extremely varnished and polished with a nice glossy finish.
My thoughts are never pure.
Yeah, mine are definitely unvarnished because they're just coming. I'm flying by the seat of my pants in most episodes. So, yeah, I think that Cassidy 2099 hit that right on the head.
For sure.
So the next one, I'm going to just, it looks like WCX, something like that.
Knox.
Yeah, that's what we'll go with. So it says, great show. Dan and Joe, I'm going to put in parentheses, and Jeff.
Jeff's here too, man.
Welcome new guests every week, I guess, which is apparently me, to dig deep into the works of one artist.
I have that Jeff guy on all the time.
Yeah. It's a daunting task, but they handle it with reverence and fun. Love the dedication, and I'm always happy when a new episode hits my feed. Nice. We really appreciate that. Anytime you guys can give us 5-star reviews, it helps us out, It helps with search relevance. So the more reviews you give us, the more people that find us. So keep them coming. We really appreciate it.
Excuse me, sir. I'm looking for a metal podcast. Would you happen to know where I could find a metal podcast?
Discography Discussion.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I was hoping that I would find a metal podcast in your store. And your store is the internet. And the internet is iTunes. At least that's the way Apple wants it to be.
Hey, it's Apple Podcasts now, bro.
Oh, shit.
iTunes is last year. Oh, yeah.
Speaking of last year, we got a tweet on episode 37, Deadsy. This is from Until a Light Fades 83. I just heard your podcast on Deadsy. I'm a huge Deadsy fan since the early 2000s. I even saw them live as well. Commencement is highly underrated. I agree. I still hear it often, even now, 16 years later. Peace.
Man, that Deadsy episode, man.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Every couple months, man, somebody's like, hey, I need to talk to you about that Deadsy episode you did.
So really what we're finding is that Deadsy is that band that everybody listened to, but nobody talks about for some...
I think that...
Nobody knows reason.
I think they need to put something out. I mean, there's people clamoring for it.
I'm one of those people.
I think we all would listen to it.
Absolutely.
It's hard to believe it's been 16 years that's what I'm getting at.
It does make me feel pretty old. We got a comment on the Slipknot episode.
Yeah, actually, we got one. This was on Facebook.
Okay.
So, yeah, this was from Alex. It says, damn, fellas, the Slipknot episode was amazing. You guys hit on all the points that I felt since I was in high school. Glad to hear all the love for Corey Taylor, easily the best modern vocalist of our generation. Keep up the amazing work, guys. Nothing but love.
I tend to agree with that sentiment because he really is kind of the guy today.
Yeah, he really is. He's just so versatile, and he's got such a massive range. I think the only other vocalist over the last, I'd say, 30 years that I'd pick over him, Mike Patton.
Maybe, versatility-wise.
Yeah, as far as versatility, just like all the things that he could do.
Well, let's not discount Christian here from Ill Niño.
We're going to get to that in a little bit.
Talk about underreported vocalist.
Yeah, no kidding.
You want to read this email, Dan, real quick?
Absolutely. This is from Ryan. Hey, guys, here's my comment since I don't use social media. Just an interesting aside, Joey was replaced by Jay Weinberg, son of Max Weinberg, Bruce Springsteen, Conan.
That was 100% true. I can't believe I forgot to mention it.
Yeah. He goes, I really recommend Larry King's interview with Corey Taylor for an inside scoop to his thought process in a band history. He also explains the relationship he has fronting both bands. Corey has also written a few books that look good. To Jeff, I mentioned Adam Shaper as Jimmy Got Hustled, ska, ska, ska. So I don't know what that means.
I have no idea either.
That's all you, man.
Maybe.
All right, cool.
We got a tweet from AC, Alt1. He said, I turned my cousin onto the podcast. Got to spread the love. And no, Joe, you weren't being too harsh. Volume 3 is straight up Stone Sour Slipknot hybrid. Some kind of weird metal pop album. It isn't an altogether terrible album, but it was their lowest point at that point in their career.
Totally agree.
And in my opinion, their lowest point, period. I definitely don't agree, but to each his own. Basically, Jeff and I had very different views, except we both agree Mud Shovel is fucking awesome. I was with Dan until the Gray chapter, which I feel is easily their best since Iowa. I think it's heavy as they can be at that point. I agree with that. They've had a couple people they've had to replace and a couple that they've had to replace not by choice. So it's going to be a little different, but it's still Slipknot, and that's the good news.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about the Great chapters that just didn't stick with me for some reason.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments and for your emails, and keep those messages coming our way. We'll definitely read them on the show. We will real quick mention Patreon. We're doing something different for everybody. $1 on Patreon will give you access to an additional feed where we're doing individual album reviews. And we have a comment on that from Patrick, one of our patrons. These Patreon episodes are shaping up well. So far, 2 of my favorite albums in 2 episodes. Definitely my favorite Blindside album overall. Great hooks, fairly heavy, and well-written music. And that was our episode we put out last week on Silence. And our first episode for the Patreon reviews was Between the Buried and Me's Colors, which I cannot wait to do an episode on Between the Buried and Me, Mr. Director, sir. Person.
Oh, I don't know who the director is. He must have been out to lunch for a year.
That explains why I'm out of beer.
I just show up and talk.
No, that's my job.
Right. And mine.
Occasionally show up. I should have.
Yeah. Well, once the director gets back, he's going to want to talk about your absences.
Yeah. Hey,
So.
can you give me the email from the Jimmy Got Hustled guy? Because that is Adam's old band.
Oh, I'll hook you up.
Okay.
So, Dan,
Yo.
tell me about Ill Niño.
Well, it's funny because Ill Niño was marketed to me as a Latin metal band.
So you're saying I did my job when I called you up and told you about it the next day?
Yeah, I can't remember if it was you or Buddy. You guys were both like, you need to listen to this Ill Niño band. And I was like, I don't know, man. This don't sound nothing like that in them Linkin Parks.
With that twang you were doing, I thought you were going to go straight to like Pantera or
Hey, boy, this don't sound
Metallica.
nothing like that Pantera. You guys listen to Leonard Skinner? Hell yeah, I do.
Zombies free.
Well, what Leonard Skinner songs do you know? Well, I know Freebird and hey, you know what? I think I hear my rooster roosting over there. I gotta get going, all right?
oh shit.
Here goes the cowboy from hell. So yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, this was really different because like really there's really not a really good way to say this. So I'm just gonna say it up to this point in my life, and this point is like 2001. I had only heard metal that was this really, really, really white. And so this was different for me. This was extremely cool because it didn't sound like anything else that I really listened to at that time. So, I mean, them having that Latin feel, I mean, it is all over the first Ill Niño record, Revolution. It is, there's tribal drums, there's all kinds of cool stuff like Spanish guitar, like Spanish clean guitar. And
Oh, you mean that acoustic thing you were bitching about earlier?
I wasn't bitching about it. I was just correcting you and saying that while it does exist, it is not a heavy song, bro. Anyway, what struck me about Ill Niño at the time was on the Mudvayne episode, I was talking about how, we'd listen to nu metal predominantly at that time. I think everyone did. And there were bands like your Linkin Park. I don't know if Linkin Park was in 2001. Maybe they were.
They had just appeared.
Pretty close, right? I think Hybrid Theory might have been out then. But a lot of these bands, you had like Linkin Park, POD, Limp Bizkit, Korn. And I remember putting those bands in a category of nu metal of being more of like a hard rock metal thing. They weren't necessarily balls to the wall all the time. And then you had bands that I would call the next level bands. And those bands were the ones that were heavy all the time, always aggressive. So that's like your Slipknot, your Mudvayne. And very quickly, Ill Niño became one of those bands for me as well. They were really smooth. They played what I wanted to hear, if that makes sense.
They definitely succeeded in the way they were originally presented to me. I mentioned it earlier. Heavy and melodic, but at the same time. And listening to the record even today, I find myself laughing at the guitar nerd stuff where God Save Us and Nothing's Clear and If You Still Hate Me are kind of like the same song, only they're backwards. And every song is kind of the same feel, but it's not a bad thing. And as far as guitar tone goes, for all those guitar gear junkies out there, it doesn't sound like 2001. It sounds like we turned everything up as beefy and as heavy as we possibly could. But then the producer had a bright idea to let the band play an acoustic over the top of it, which is the ultimate trick for your metal heavy trying to sneak that by, if you know what I mean. But it works so well.
Well, the first song I ever heard by Ill Niño was God Save Us, and it was on a sampler CD. It was one of the Roadrunner samplers. And I remember hearing it and just being completely blown away at how aggressive it opens with the intense screams. Jordan's vocals on this record are rough. He's definitely not using proper technique at all. I don't know how he even continues to be a rock singer to this day after that type of performance. It sounds like it hurts, and like it actually hurts my throat just listening to it sometime. But it really accentuates the lyrical themes of the record, which are just your typical nu metal stuff. I hate you, you're a dumb bitch, I'm tougher than you. All that stuff is on Revolution. but there is a little bit of a finesse to it. But I think, like Corey Taylor from Slipknot, Christian had a voice, a melodic, clean singing voice that was really angelic. And it really, one of the things that I used to always complain about is whenever a heavy band would play, this really aggressive open, and then the chorus kicks in and everything slows the fuck down. And that was not the case with God Save Us. The momentum of the song carried through that chorus. The best thing I can compare it to would be something like Wait and Bleed by Slipknot, where, it was just really just intense throughout. It didn't let up. It kept the aggression level up. And so you already knew what you were getting into whenever that second verse kicks in.
Yeah, you said that God Save Us is the first one you heard. What comes around, that was the first thing that I heard.
Yeah, I think that was the second single.
Yeah, it's the second single. And truthfully, couldn't tell you where or how I heard it, but it probably had to do something with the fact that around this time I was like, one of my favorite bands is Ozo Motley, and somebody probably knew that I liked like music that's kind of got an infusion of Latin music or traditional music, or things that's just a little different from your regular run of the mill radio play stuff. And I kind of been hooked ever since. It makes you realize how much a band can become fantastic whenever they don't have somebody standing over their shoulder telling them how to be, and they discover themselves.
Yeah, and I think this record was really a testament to that. I mean, obviously they'd been working on this material for a long time. And like Joe said, they're not overly complicated songs. Like tech metal, this is not. This isn't math metal. This is
it's more primal in feeling.
It is. It's the same attraction I have to stuff like this, which is why I appreciate bands like Soulfly as so much. And Soulfly is even more intense than this, but like
good comparison.
Yeah, I mean it's really
with good reason too.
Good reason. Wait. Anyway, so
I see what you did.
I see what I did there. Okay, so yeah, this band definitely had that primal emotion to what they did. And again, I don't think that the lyrics are necessarily mature because, let's be honest, this is a new metal record released on Roadrunner Records in 2001. So it's going to be angsty as fuck. It's going to be like issues you had with your parents or issues that you had with a girlfriend or stuff like that. But the way it's delivered is just like this guy, like Christian must be the most intense dude because he really,
most intense dude.
Right. Things just really hit him out of nowhere and he reacts to it in such an extreme way. Yeah, and I love that. I love the hot-headedness of it. But it's not necessarily uber macho either.
Yeah, well, I know he had a pretty tough childhood. I know his parents separated when he was pretty young, and his mom moved him around quite a bit. And he grew up fatherless, and he was pretty pissed off about that.
I can hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I think him and his dad eventually reconciled, but there's definitely some angstiness in between this and whenever that reconciliation happened.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about this record is just the trade-off between the melodic vocal and the screaming vocals.
Oh, can you say that again?
Which I know is like really kind of a generic thing to like, but it's...
Are you calling me generic?
On this record, I think it really works. I know. When Roach Coach reviewed this episode, they said that there was a little too much singy boy, or a little too much smooth boy, And I don't honestly think that that's possible with this band, unless we're talking about the next record, which I'm not ready to give up on this one just yet.
No, this album is a cover to cover. I'm going to steal Jeff's bit for just a second, Jeff, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
With very little exception, will I skip a track on this album? If I put in Revolution, I'm listening to it from beginning to end, and even if I skip a track, I find myself going back to it later. It's more of a, I want to hear what comes around now, but then I'll go back and listen to Nothing's Clear, and then I'll listen to Liar and Rumba, and then I'll be like, oh wait, I want to hear No Murder, and then I'll go back to I Am Loco.
Rumba is killer, man.
I know, man.
That sound clip they play at the beginning of it, where they're like, what is going on here? And the scientist is like, I think there's no other explanation other than this theological perspective that maybe the gods want something.
Oh God,
like,
Dan found Incubus again.
Yeah, oh my God, it was so cool. I really enjoyed that. And no, I don't think that the choruses are too overdone on this record. I think maybe it's just kind of a product of what it is. Again, it's a 2001 Roadrunner Records release. These are the elements that label was looking for at that time. And they had it in spades. Because I think ever since Slipknot exploded, they're looking for that. They're looking for that magical horse. And I don't think Ill Niño was quite that. And we'll get into that later. But on this record, I think that they did their job very well. They had loud, angsty, aggressive music that was melodic. It's stuck in your head. I mean, I never am listening to this record because I listen to so many fucking records. And this is one that, like Jeff said, it's an easy listen. There's nothing unfamiliar about it to me. And it flows in such a way that I think you can hear it once or twice and go back to it and remember everything that you liked about it before. I don't think it's complex enough for me to say, I'm hearing things I didn't hear before. I don't think it's like that. I mean, I think it's still a very mainstream metal release.
It's comfortable.
It is.
And I think that's what makes, there's other reasons why some records might be something you need to re-listen to. Like Tony Danza, I mean, you got to re-listen to it because it's all over the place and you're trying to catch everything. And this one, it's the familiarity and the comfort level that you have that makes you want to listen to it again.
It's like a Whopper cheeseburger, right? I mean,
or a Big Mac.
It's a sure thing.
Well, okay.
Well, no, because
not a
Slipknot is the Big Mac, and
Ill Niño is the double
Whopper,
cheeseburger.
Is the Whopper.
Yeah. So why do I always get the double quarter pounder?
Shit,
with cheese?
What does that make Wendy's? Like what the fuck does that make Mudvayne? Like the Wendy's square burger?
Well, I mean, they have layers, so you can get 17 different patties if you want.
Right, that's true. Well, at least it's only for a limited time though. That runs out after a while.
After how many records, Dan?
After how many records does that special run out? Anyway, we already did the Mudvayne episode. I'm sorry. But Revolution was just great. I mean, even the title track is fantastic with that heavy riff that starts it off. I mean, just the way he screams with so much passion at the end of the revolution. And there's a part at the end that just always gets me. It's like almost like he's like revolution, and he's just like brah, 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 brah. Like I just, oh my God, I just love how that song sounds, and it is literally a showcase of how beefy this record can actually be. And yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot more I can say about it other than I love it. And this is the first time that we are going, as a podcast, going to disagree with the fine folks over at Roach Coach and say that, no, this record's fucking great.
Yeah, it's good.
We're not making a new metal canon, but if we were, Ill Niño's
it would be made out of cheeseburgers and 7 slices of cheese.
Revolution would definitely be part of that canon with a side of fries.
God, shut up. I'm getting hungry over here.
All right, Jeff, we got 6 more albums, and then you can get all the burger you want.
I had a salad for dinner.
Who are you?
Right. I had a...
Gotta slim down for Rock N Pod.
I had an organic burrito, pinto beans, free-range cheese, whatever the fuck that is.
Ugh.
I don't know, my wife bought it.
Cool.
It tasted good.
Ugh.
So 2003, Confession. I admit, I did not hear this album before I heard the single.
We didn't have a choice. The single was thrown upon us.
Yeah, it was all over the place.
I remember telling this story very recently, but for those that may not know, Dan and I went and saw Freddy vs. Jason. It was an amazing experience. And then during the end credits, we heard this band that sounded like it could be, maybe possibly, Ill Niño. But we couldn't decide for sure.
Right, but it was like a rock song.
We heard it, and we were sitting there. We actually sat back down, I remember, for a couple minutes going, is that Ill Niño? Because it could be.
Well, and then we went to Walmart and bought the soundtrack just to verify.
Sure enough, it was Ill Niño. And I remember having mixed feelings. It obviously sounded different. The production was a slightly altered presentation, but it wasn't so drastically different that I didn't think This is going to fail.
Well, it didn't fail.
Then Dan bought Confession.
Yep.
And we sat and listened to it, and I remember the first track, Te Amo, I Hate You. And I said, okay, well, it doesn't sound the same, but I can't really decide what's different other than the guitar tone.
Everything was just kind of turned down. Like it was what were we talking about? Yeah, with Slipknot, it was muted. This is a really common theme when we're talking about nu metal, because a lot of these really aggressive bands always end up putting out that album. The one where they've taken all of the grit and they've removed almost all of it to make it this like
radio-friendly,
this nice shiny thing. Right.
Yeah, and I can't really blame people for doing that at that time. I mean,
I like money.
Yeah, I was gonna say, people waving money in front of your face.
Hey,
what
Dan,
the
can I have
fuck?
some
I
money?
mean, come on, you're just gonna do it.
No,
and
I
cussed.
No.
It took me a whole half hour into the episode, and I finally dropped an F-bomb. Sorry, I was trying to make it. I didn't make it. I failed.
Put a quarter in the jar, Jeff.
It's
Shit,
already
I
full.
owe the jar like $9,000.
I know. I was gonna say, between Dan and I, it's like overflowing.
See, I remember hearing the first song, Ti Amo, I Hate You. And I mean, I think I was still on board with that song because it was still really pissed off. There's a lot of fuck you. There's nothing I could do, blah, blah, blah. I didn't think that Christian sounded as intense with his screams. However, like I stated previously, it sounded like it was really hurting him to do what he did on Revolution. And so this is a little bit more of a streamlined sound. You run into this. I mean, even Mudvayne's screams stopped being as intense as they were. I think the only person that really kept it up was Corey Taylor throughout.
Right.
But
Even he took a break a couple times.
a few times, yeah. And so, but then when How Can I Live came on, I already knew the song, obviously. I knew what I was getting myself into, but I was kind of like, really? Like, you have an aggressive song like Ti Amo, I Hate You, and you're going to follow it up with this? And one thing that I noticed on this, too, is that they just kind of sound like a regular band on this. They don't sound like the Latin metal hybrid that we had on Revolution. I mean, it's there a little bit, but it just sounds like every other band that's out at that time. And that really turned me off.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was turned down. I mean, you can hear a little bit of it and How I Can Live, but it's not the focal point that it is on most of their other albums. I mean, that's what helps differentiate them from everybody else. Oh, one of the things.
So having seen them live, I would say, had this been mixed the same as Revolution, you would be less upset about the change in song quality because the band feels the same. They're doing the same tricks. They're going heavy. They're going melodic. There's a little diddly guitar on top. The drums have that Latin feel. There's no extras going on, at least not most of the time.
It's a superficial similarity.
But it's a superficial similarity.
It is a
Very well
superficial
said.
similarity to what you had on Revolution. Because, again, I think this sounds like, the guitars are muted, the vocals are toned down, the production on the singing vocals sounds like, it's almost like when he's screaming, it sounds like they just sent him into a bathroom with a microphone. It's like, here, scream it. And then he just kind of like does it, and then they turn it down in the mix. The screams are very much turned down in the mix on this. Everything's muted. Everything sounds really smooth and clean, but like not in a good way. And like some of the vocals sound rappy, which isn't necessarily like a bad thing considering the genre, but I don't know, it just came off as sounding kind of lame here. Like the heavy part at the end of How Can I Live like just sounds like a pale comparison. It's almost like, you've got this big tough dude that's a bodybuilder and he just snaps necks for a living, and then like his little brother comes up and he's like 2 feet shorter and a little bit smaller, and he doesn't really snap necks, but he pokes people in the eyes. It's kind of like that. I know I apologize at how weird my comparisons are, but like that's how I feel about it, that it's a pale imitation of what the band had established prior. And I think when the record producer or whomever was in charge of this came to the band and said, this is the vision I have for this record, I think the fact that he allowed them to include elements that they had on their previous releases, the acoustic guitar, the tribal drums, all that stuff, it's all there, but it's not really forefront. Whereas it was part of the main dish on the first record, it is now just a light garnish that is thrown onto generic radio-friendly songs.
Yeah, there's a lot of hand-holding going on, I feel. I feel like they're like, okay, we know what the winning formula is, and this is what you need to do, not what Ill Niño needs to do. This is what we think you need to do. You guys just happen to be playing it.
Now, I think I definitely was disinterested when it came out because I guess the biggest question that can be asked, and it comes up a lot on this show, is it necessarily a bad thing that it's more mainstream? Is it necessarily a bad thing that it's catchy, radio-friendly songs? I'm going to say that it's not a bad thing, but it is a bad thing if you're a metal fan. If you're only here for the screams, if you're only here for the loud, heavy guitar, you're not going to find a lot to like on Confession. Now, whenever I went back and listened to it for the show, I did enjoy it, actually. Because like Revolution and like a lot of the Ill Niño discography, it's not like this is hard to listen to. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's mainstream. It's really singy. The choruses repeat forever. But there's nothing on this that makes me think oh God, that's nails on a chalkboard. I can't continue through it. It was just smooth. I got to the end of it and I was just yeah, I mean, that's about what I remember.
It's a lunch break.
The thing about Confession is that if you like rock and you're not necessarily big on the whole metal thing, then Confession is a perfectly serviceable album for that. For people that are only looking for something that's easy to listen to. And I do think that the musicianship is still pretty good on Confession. And I'm trying to be well balanced because, I mean, little teenager me was this is shit. And you know what I mean? Didn't even give it to the time of day. And it, now in my adult life, I can listen to it and say, okay, well, this was all right. It's not going to be my go-to. I mean, there's much better radio-friendly rock out there. But, this has got a little bit of that flavor. But I definitely did not continue with the band as a teenager after listening to this record. I just kind of assumed, because I saw their newer albums on shelves, and I just kind of assumed it was going to be like this. So I didn't really pay much attention. And man, was I missing out.
2005. One Nation Underground. If you were worried about Ill Niño, you have less reason to be worried now.
Do you think anybody's sitting in their basement oh my God, I'm just so worried about how this Ill Niño album's going to sound?
I mean, I was in 2005.
I
got
this as a big old fuck you to the producers and record companies, what I got out of it.
Instead, I actually bought
Nickelback?
Mudvayne.
Ugh.
Wounds were deep. Well, Ill Niño definitely
awesome.
did not suck.
No.
In 2005.
No, they did not.
This record starts off, the first song is called This Is War, which should give you a pretty good idea of what you're about to hear. This does not sound like Revolution. I want to get that out of the way right now. Okay, this is something completely different. Because when I was listening to it, what I was really surprised about was that I think Revolution was really in the higher tier of how extreme you could get with nu metal. Similar to Mudvayne's LD50 and Slipknot's Iowa, they're really pushing the boundaries of what could really be considered nu metal.
And still be really, really heavy.
Right.
Mm-hmm. This is not
Ill Niño is what are the bands we've been touring with lately? Soulfly, Unearth, Azalea Dying,
Drowning Pool,
Killswitch Engage.
I think Nonpoint was in there too, weren't they?
Nonpoint. Love Nonpoint.
Shout out to Rob.
Stay tuned for July.
Right? So, yeah, man, what struck me is that, you start off with the strong tribal drums. There's tribal chants in the background. They're not fucking around. They are reestablishing that this is what we are all about. And the song kicks in, just heavy guitar drop right at the beginning. And then they start playing fucking metalcore for a while. I was holy shit. This band could maybe be accused of ripping off of whatever's popular at the time, but this was the best move for them. I mean, 100%.
Agreed.
If they wanted to be taken seriously as a heavy band in 2005, they did the opposite of what Mudvayne did, and they absolutely just went for the fucking jugular.
It sounds like the band that recorded Revolution recorded an album in 2005.
Absolutely. And it really, I mean, and it's all there. Like, the choruses are all there. It's not like they just went straight grind or anything. They you know, because, I mean, you get that metalcore stuff, and then suddenly out of nowhere you get this, you know, and I swear that I'm not giving up. And you're like, okay, shit, yeah. This is Ill Niño. And it definitely, I mean, and this shit carries on for like 2-3 songs. I don't think it's until track 4 that we get to like a slower song, like something closer to what you'd heard on Confession. There's even a song that they have Jamie Josta from Hatebreed on, and that's kind of unreal to hear, you know.
Yeah, that was actually Turns to Grey that you were talking about. The
Turns to Grey. Okay, yeah. My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
Like I said, I gave up on the band after Confession, so a lot of these albums, when I was listening to them, were very new for me.
Yeah, De La Vida's got the intro. Fucking love, man. The drums on this track are fucking killer.
Oh yeah.
I sense Sepultura in the Force.
And that is that's not a bad thing at all.
No, this definitely.
You know, when did he?
This is like the melodic Soulfly type sound.
Dude.
You know, like it really is.
Bang on, man. And I think that's why I like it so much.
I mean, Christian's no Max Cavalera as far as, you know, like, I don't know.
Attitude?
Presence.
Have we seen them in the same place?
I haven't, but I mean, I'd love to see that. But.
Oh, God. God, that's like, just take my money.
But so this record was really like, I mean, if you want to call it a mix of Revolution, and Confession, it's not wrong necessarily. But like even the songs that are more melodic, that sound more like rock songs, they're single bait at this point.
Yeah, I think this is more of a precursor of what's to come.
It really is. It kind of shows off that it's like, hey, Ill Niño is not afraid to take it to the next level and stay there. It's not like they're going to occasionally get more extreme or whatever. This record definitely, while I don't think is as strong as Revolution was, it's not. It's a little disjointed. There's still a little bit of that Confession attitude in it. And for some reason, I think Christian's screaming vocals sound kind of shitty on this record.
They didn't layer him like they did on the previous two.
No, and it sounds very dry and raw, which could have been what he was going for. But for some reason,
I liked it.
I liked it too. I just don't think it sounded as good.
Oh,
you know,
I disagree. I actually like his.
Sounds.
It's all opinion. I mean, I just happen to like this style for him.
Well,
more.
Jeff, as a vocalist, no.
I'm sure you're definitely a vocal guy.
Well, I just think that maybe he was just getting into it again. You know what I mean? Because I mean, Revolution, they kind of came out of the gate and had been playing these songs for a long time. And in Confession, they kind of took a break. And the vocals were not as extreme. They weren't as harsh. So I think for a record like this, I think the attitude's there. I think the intensity is there. I think that the will to be aggressive is there. But I don't think it's quite there. Like, it's going to take him this album to get to where he's going to eventually end up.
Oh, agreed. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I feel like it's a precursor.
Yeah.
Because moving forward after this album, after they become independent again, yeah.
Jeff has said precursor, I think, twice. I'm going to take that as a cue, Jeff, and say 2008, Enigma.
Okay.
Well, Jeff, you just take it away, buddy.
Dude, this is my favorite album. This is way, way more chill than what I was expecting. But good God, they just said, this is our music, our way, like it or just go home. And thankfully, I love it. I mean, this is a really good album to chill to. I listened to this album, oh gosh, maybe 10 times this week.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I listen to every album that we do, unless it's like massive, like Black Sabbath episodes. You know, I try to listen to them 2 or 3 times every week.
Yeah, this one, I listened to this one twice, and I listened to a couple of the other later ones 2 times.
Yeah, this one was so easy to just put on play. I like the fact that it has the whole ebb and flow. It's got that certain tracks are like in your face and fuck you, and turn around, 10 minutes later, and you feel like you're chilling on a beach with a beer in your hand, and you're like, okay,
With a Corona. No.
Was this your vacation jam, Jeff?
Yes, I'm not a Corona guy. Give me a.
Hey, as long as you weren't drinking fucking Land Shark, well, then we could still be friends.
Yeah, if I'm gonna drink a quote unquote Mexican beer, it's Negra Modelo, which I happen to have behind me right now.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go get one of those.
Yeah, they're so fucking good.
I don't always listen to Ill Niño while I drink beer, but when I do, I listen to Enigma.
Dude, I like Dos Equis Amber too.
See, I've listened to this record probably the least out of the newer albums.
I can understand.
It's not for any one particular reason other than I am personally so invested in Revolution. I think this is the record I wish Confession was. A little bit toned down, but still heavy.
Yeah. I mean, they did it. I think that's why I like it. They did a really good marriage. The only thing that I wish is that I had the limited edition. I didn't realize Chino was on it.
Yeah, that was 2008 when Chino was on everything.
So I still like Chino.
Shout out to the anti-mother.
Yes.
But I'm gonna have to track that down. I don't know if it's on this, because this album I actually have. So I didn't actually listen to it on streaming service. That might have been the other reason why I listened to it the most, because I actually own this one.
See, I think there's a little bit more piss and vinegar on this one.
Oh, there is.
And I like that about it. I like that it's equally heavy, but it's melodic, but it's not melodic like Confession, if that makes sense. This is not like, okay, this is gonna be our single bait. This is gonna be the song we're gonna release that we think is gonna get played on the radio or whatever. I think this is really just more of a conscious decision of, okay, yeah, we want to write a couple of chill songs, but we're going to do it our way. By chill, we don't mean just tone down everything that we're about. It's really just we're going to take what we've learned from those experiences, because I mean, they're 4 albums deep now, and they haven't totally shit the bed yet. You know, like it's not one of those bands. They're not one of those bands that just, you know, it settles for mediocrity. Not at this point in their career. There's definitely an attitude on One Nation Underground and on Enigma that is very much like, hey, this is our sound now that we've carved out, and it's been a little bit painful leading up, but from here on out, it's going to be back to that instantly listenable, enjoyable, smooth experience.
I like that. Instantly listenable. It's metal. It's rock. It's clean. It's melodic. It's instantly listenable. It's got a beat to it. It's got a samba going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's even straight up, ballads on this as well. I mean, it's not all. They show their range quite a bit on this album. That might be the other reason why I like it so much, is that it is that they're stretching out, showing what they're capable of. They're not just a pretty band. They're not just a heavy band. They're both of those things, and I think that's why I like this. I like this album so much, is that it does a really good job of encompassing everything that Ill Niño is.
Well, I feel like they're massively underrated in that sense
they
too.
Are. They absolutely are.
I can't figure out how a band that sounds this good consistently
overall
doesn't really get the credit that they deserve. I mean, is everybody like me and listened to Confession and said, no, I'm good, and just walked away?
Honestly, I think so.
Yeah, I think that happened quite a bit.
I think there's a little bit of a stigma with this band that they came out during nu metal. And a lot of people, when I mention Ill Niño, they're thinking of Revolution, when the band as a whole has put out more records that would be equal to One Nation Underground. If that was the first record you found by this band, that's mostly what they sound like. Revolution is kind of the oddball at that point. Yeah, the songs are heavy. They're also very simple. Whereas there's a little bit more that goes into playing these songs, even though they are still completely listenable.
Well, I think that Revolution was just a product of its time. Unfortunately, it sounds like a record that came out in 2001.
It's
and that's
dated.
That's not knocking it, but the newer Ill Niño material, I would say anything from One Nation Underground on is much more modern sounding. And that's where that whole instantly listenable part of it comes into play.
Right. I think the problem is that, that was what put them on the map, and then you have something like Slipknot, and you go back to listen to their old stuff, especially like Iowa. Iowa still is relevant because it's so fucking hard and heavy. And you go back and you listen to a lot of this, early 2000s, late 90s, quote-unquote, nu metal, and it doesn't hold up. I mean, that's just unfortunately how it works. And so whenever people remember you with that particular style, they kind of forget about everything else. And it's a shame because these guys are fantastic and they're way better now than they were then.
Yeah, so Enigma was a strong release. I think I like it more than One Nation Underground, just because that record was a little bit disjointed. I think maybe the sequencing was a little fucked on that record. But I think overall it was good, and definitely a massive step up from Confession. And I feel like this record was like them giving something like Confession another shot, if that makes sense. Because I think whenever they wrote Confession, they sat down and said, we want to write a more melodic record. We want songs that people are going to identify with. It's going to make them feel good or whatever.
Make us money.
Hey, whatever. But Enigma is much more of like, okay, we're doing that, but now we don't have a big shot producer from Roadrunner being like, okay, guys, let's fucking hear it. Let's hear that. Let's hear that radio single. Because I don't think that the ballads on this are really radio single material. Really, some of the heavier songs are actually more commercial sounding than some of the slower stuff.
Oh yeah, the slower stuff. They definitely has that really heavy Latin vibe to a lot of it, and I dig it. Yeah, Finger Painting, fucking awesome track, man.
Finger Painting with Your Enemies.
Dude, this is such a great song. Yeah, thank God we made that point clear.
So, moving on to the next record, which is called Dead New World.
Are you guys ready for this?
Oh yeah, dude. I was born ready.
I was about to say, I think I'm outnumbered now. 2 out of 3 think it's better than One Nation Underground, so I'm going to have to give it more listens and see how I feel.
Dude, Dead
2010.
New World.
I did not see this coming, and I was a little worried when it first started. I thought I was listening to a Ill Niño, almost Under Oath cash-in, not hardcore metalcore, but it just had that tone that everybody had at that time, so I was a little worried. And then 10 seconds later, it was Ill Niño again, so I wasn't worried anymore.
I don't think that it was a strong open. I mean, it's a great song. God is Only for the Dead. Fucking great song. But I don't think it really opens the album very well, and I don't think it's super representative. There's actually a song on this record called My Revolution or Me Revolucion. And I feel like that's really what they should have opened the record with.
Does anybody else notice how prominent the congas are on this album over every other Ill Niño release?
I don't know if it's over it.
Because they're definitely there on all the other albums, but they're definitely brought up in the mix on this record.
Well, I don't know if like Max Cavalera was hanging around when they recorded this, because when I hear Dead New World and I look at the cover art and everything, it really wants to be a Soulfly record. Like, it really does. And the biggest thing that got me about this record was, yes, it's super melodic. They're singing whatever, fuck you, okay? But this record, Christian has, like, leveled up in screaming metal vocals. He is guttural as shit on this.
It sounds fantastic.
It is deep. I don't know if he... Again, I honestly think it's listening to a lot of Soulfly. Like, he just...
Well, how much... I know he actually guested on a couple of tracks, correct? Or is it more than just that? Gold in your beer?
A little bit of gold in my beer. Sorry about that.
That's what happens when you drink your Negra Modelo.
really good.
It is.
But yeah, no, I mean, this is
this around the time that he was messing?
Yeah,
with
he did some
stuff?
stuff with Soulfly, but man, I will tell you what, like, I was blown away because, like, at this point, I mean, I'm still thinking of this as a new metal band. It's New Metal May. Why wouldn't I? You know, and like I experienced this record in its entirety for the first time this week.
Yeah, it doesn't say it's like Latin metal, metalcore.
And I remember thinking, like, God, this is
metal.
Yeah, this is a lot closer to the kind of stuff I like, you know. Yeah. And I loved it, and I actually found the hooks really infectious on this record. I mean, and oh my God, like at the end of Mi Revolucion, when he starts screaming Revolucion, Revolucion, I mean, God, dude, my nostalgia boner was
You're not kidding.
was like through the roof on that, you know.
I don't know if that's a cash-in, you know. That's kind of like that time Godsmack put out Voodoo 2. And I was like, well, you have the word voodoo in it, but it's not really the same.
Every time you say the word Godsmack, I'm going to take 1 year off the end of your life.
I'll see you in a year.
You have 3 days to live. So,
thank God you haven't done that with me in Sunny Day Real Estate.
Oh, shit. No, for every time you say Sunny Day Real Estate, it's 5 years.
Wait, his life or mine?
I've been dead for like 200 years.
Right? He's been alive for 170. So, but yeah, no, Mi Revolucion, definitely a callback, I think. You know, and I think that's cool. I wouldn't call it a cash-in necessarily. But man, this is just fucking in your face. It's melodic. It's heavy. It's instantly listenable. This record goes down very easily. And I was pretty surprised at the quality of the band, in that they had put out this many records. Because I was shocked whenever we put this band on the calendar to talk about them in New Metal May. I thought like 4 albums, 5 albums, something like that, and to get like 7. It was a little rough this week getting through all of it, but it wasn't rough. It really, I found that, oh yeah, dude, I can just listen to this. And I listened to this record a couple of times, listened to Enigma a couple of times, and I think the only thing that hurts this band as a metal fan, and this depends 100% on what my mood is that day. You know, Monday I'm listening to fucking Death Grind, and Tuesday I'm listening to, you know, old school thrash metal, but then Wednesday I want to listen to something really nice. And you know, so Wednesday was my day this week where I really dug into Dead New World and Enigma, and these records I think complement each other really well. I think if you like, this is the first time I feel like with Ill Niño that like there isn't a major division necessarily between the records, because you had like One Nation Underground, which was kind of a heavier record that was sandwiched between 2 softer ones. And then you had this record come out and it kind of be more consistently like the last one.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing. Like, as a music critic, I'm supposed to shit on anything that doesn't change, but then like heavily shit on if it changes too much.
Well, I think
I'm just not pleasable. That's all it is.
I think they've done a good job, especially this 3-album streak, ending with Epidemia, of walking that fine line of sounding like you know who you're listening to, but it also not being repetitive and boring.
Ready to roll into Epidemia then?
Yeah, and that's a difficult task to request of a band, whenever you're asking them to do that, and I think they did it well.
Did they remodernize again?
Dude, Epidemia is fucking brutal, man.
It is by far. It's, to quote Jeff, it's the heaviest album they have, and it's not even close. Like, I mean, it is. This blew me away because I kind of had gotten into a groove with Dead New World, you know, and Enigma, and I thought, yeah, okay, cool, it's fine. But when I got to this, I was like, fuck, there's like thrash metal in here, there's some death metal in here, still some new metal, but like Christian is a beast. It's the very first time as a vocalist I describe him as a beast.
Yeah.
He's still smooth as ice, but he's still a fucking beast.
I think that's what my issue is, going back and listening to Revolution, is I keep thinking of Epidemia, and I'm like, okay, Now that's badass vocals. And I think that's what my problem is. When I know you guys have more of a sentimental attachment, to Revolution, but I don't, because I hear this and I'm like, okay, this is what brutal vocals should sound like. And I wish that if he had sounded like this on the first go around, I would have never put it down.
Right, but nobody that was doing new metal sounded like that. Maybe 5.0. Right. You remember 5.0?
Nope.
Oh, okay, well, never mind. Well, then there was that dude from the Fifth Element. No. But we'll talk about that a different week. But
yes, we will.
But, no, I mean, God. This record was just so heavy. I mean, the cover looks like something like Fear Factory would put out. I mean, it's like pentagrams on it. Like, they want to reinforce the, like, hey, metal fans,
we kick ass.
You want to check this out. But at the same time, I do think that there are moments on this record that sound a little too, like they're trying to incorporate the Ill Niño sound into something that it's not. This record, despite being super brutal, and I love it for that, I think that the melodic elements, for the very first time in the band's history, I think the melodic elements and the heavy elements somewhat clash. It can be a little bit jarring where, you start off with this super guttural scream and then 3 seconds later they're being really melodic, but then 4 seconds after that, then they're being really heavy again, and it just doesn't. It seems really disjointed, and I kind of wonder if maybe the band was trying to be more technical than they were capable of being. And because I would never describe them as a technical band.
You've arrived at the only real complaint I have about this record. It's a really good record. It just doesn't really sound like Ill Niño to me. It's almost gone too modern for 2014. But it's not a bad record. It's just I don't hear the same band anymore. I hear some of the same elements, but it doesn't feel the same to me as the other previous records do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Ill Niño sound is still there, but it's buried under this heavy band that's like taken over. Like they very much sound at war with themselves.
Yeah,
and that could be 100% intentional. Maybe we're supposed to feel that way, but it didn't.
Hold on, I hear "As I Lay Dying."
Right, no, right.
Jeff, we already talked about metalcore.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of metalcore on this album.
I think really anything One Nation Underground on, you would really be more accurate to describe the band as metalcore.
Yeah,
with maybe some new metal influences. If you want to totally cop out, you just call it alternative metal.
Yeah, well, I mean,
you don't have to call it anything, though.
I guess you could call it Latin metal. I mean, I guess that's kind of a genre now.
Yeah, I mean,
and I dig that. That I love the that blend. It puts a new edge on metal in general, and I totally dig that.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. It definitely gives me Soulfly vibes. It's almost like I said earlier, it's like the melodic Soulfly. Like Soulfly is always so intense all the time and doesn't slow down, doesn't ever. And I don't fault the band for that either. Like they are kind of a perfect band, but with Ill Niño, I think they also are perfect, but in a very different way. I think that they always achieve what they set out to achieve. But we still got another album left.
Yes.
We're being very positive at this point.
Yeah, this is
2014 Till Death, La Familia.
This was kind of a misstep for me a little bit. I was a little bit. Yeah, I was pretty disappointed with this one, to be honest with you. With the curious thing is this is one of their better charting. This was kind of like a comeback album as far as like charting is concerned.
Well, I mean, Let's Get High. We don't give a fuck. That's really cool when you're 16. But
okay, I think you just hit on why this was more popular.
Well, yeah, this was.
Remember what I said before about it not really sounding like Ill Niño anymore?
I dislike the first song.
Oh, the first song's horrible.
Without a doubt, I dislike it.
Yeah, you should just go ahead and skip this one, Jay.
And
you're speaking my language. I'm not going to tell you why.
But the same old Ill Niño is still hiding behind here, I think. I'm not sure what's up with all the electronic intros. And
it's 2014.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you what was going on then.
Okay.
Ooh. You want me to?
Get out of my house.
Oh, I didn't even say it.
You
just
didn't
made
have
you
to.
think.
You know,
You
when we
thought
talked
it.
when we talked to Lauren a couple weeks ago, I thought we had some really good breakthrough with you, Joe, about dubstep, but I guess not.
God, I wish I was here for that episode. You guys, it's like as soon as they know that there's going to be a corn discussion, Jeff cannot be on it. Oh, Jeff's going on vacation. Great. Let's do the corn episode so he cannot talk about the terrible word that Joe hates.
And the Opeth.
And the
yeah.
Opeth.
That was
Yeah.
kind of just a knife in the back. You know?
Oh, dude, but I
This
understand.
is what you get for going on vacation, Jeff.
I know, man. You guys like went crazy when I was gone.
Next time he goes out of town, we're going to talk about God Lives Underwater.
Oh, fuck you. The only thing that can make that worse is if you talked about that other band that I make people drink whenever I say it, which is Sunny Day Real Estate. So take a drink.
Okay, so
Back on track.
Till Death, La Familia.
The Latin influence is strong on this one.
It is. This is kind of an emotional record. But I'm not into the electronic elements with Ill Niño. I don't think it fits.
It definitely doesn't. I don't feel like it's needed.
Because
Do what you want all day long, guys, but I don't feel like you need the electronics.
You have a band that's kind of more popular for being really organic sounding. You know, with like more world influences and nature and, you know, just like when you throw electronics on there, it doesn't fit and it's a little off-putting. However, let's talk about Christian's vocal progression again.
I almost forgot. Frankie from Amir was on Epidemia as well. I meant to say that earlier.
Yeah, I know.
Did you say it and I missed it?
No, I just knew that. I read it online.
Yeah, we were mentioning
Yeah.
other stuff, so I
Time
totally
travel to
forgot.
20 minutes ago, Jeff, and say it.
I'm sorry.
We'll see what happens.
So I think that I think this record, Christian, still sounds really fucking brutal with his screams. He's almost gone full guttural now. He's almost unrecognizable. Like if you listen to the first two Ill Niño records and you started with this one in 2014, you'd be like, shit, did they get a different singer? But then you're like, well, no, because when he's singing clean, he sounds the same. But when
It's almost like they got a second vocalist for that.
when he's screaming, oh my God, it is really intense. But unfortunately, the music doesn't support that.
Not on this album. You know, they're actually supposed to have a new album sometime later this year.
I'm curious to know what it's going to sound like.
Yeah,
too.
I'm really curious
It's
as
been
well.
4 years.
My prediction is One Nation Underground recorded in 2018.
Well, we're definitely going to do a review of it on the Patreon feed. That's going to kind of be our catch-all for if a band we've covered put out a new album since we did the episode. We'll go ahead and throw that review on the Patreon. You know, if anybody wants kind of a more updated version of that.
All right, so what's your guess on what the album's going to be?
I haven't really been thinking about it. I think it's going to be hard to tell. I think they're going to drop the electronics.
I think it's going to go super Latin.
I think it's going to go super heavy.
So Revolution, if you
We're
both
going
get your way.
to have deathcore breakdowns with bass drops.
And Latin rhythms.
Like new like deathcore breakdowns with with new metal bass drops.
How about they just go straight off the deep end and go right to Death Grind?
I don't think they're going to go death grind anytime soon. For some reason,
You think they're going to bust out the Mr. Spell while they're at it?
I don't know what it is. If me and Jeff are,
I hate you.
I don't know if me and Jeff are just like drinking the same water or something. But like
You are drinking the same beer.
you know, that could be what it is. But like
With two straws.
since we started this new metal thing, we have been like, I guess, rebelling against it to a certain extent, listening to tons of fucking death grind.
Yeah, I've been going fucking crazy, that's unusual for me because if you listen back on the Pig Destroyer episode with just regular old grindcore, I'm like, and then new metal may hit, and I'm like, fucking give me some death grind, motherfucker.
Yeah, I've been listening to Brain Drill
Oh, nice.
this week. Yeah, so
All right, we're doing album of the week early on this episode.
No, good. Let's do final thoughts.
I'm going to go first this time, which is rare for me. I love Ill Niño. They're heavy as fuck. Pick an album and enjoy it, and give Confession another try, because I'm definitely giving Enigma another try.
Well, I'm glad you're giving Enigma another try, considering it's my favorite album of theirs. I like how bipolar they are. I mean, they're pretty...
Do you see yourself in Ill Niño on that one, Jeff?
Yeah, just a tad. I think it's why I like it so much. You know,
Jeff, I said bipolar.
Oh, I know. Oh, no, I'm being all happy right now.
Oh, okay.
But give me a second. I'll say, fuck you!
There you go.
All right, there. Now we're good. But no, I like... especially his harsh vocals, the progression he has. Good God. I mean, like Dan said, I mean, he went from being like, a real emotional screamer, just blowing his voice out, to learning how to properly hit, just kick some ass. I mean, it's unbelievable, his progression as time has gone on. I really, really like his harsh vocals, and he's always had the good, pretty vocals, but even that's gotten better over time. And I'm really looking forward to what they're bringing out. I hope that it harkens back to like Epidemia or Enigma. Till Death La Familia for me was a bit of a misstep, so I'm just hoping they bring us back to where we're all hoping they're gonna go.
Dan?
I judge a lot of these records by their cover art. So, Revolution, awesome.
Dude, he's
2018.
Still, I was gonna say, like, have you been talking to Steven? Because apparently, he buys everything sight unseen, or he just looks at it and all like, yeah, this looks good. Do you know what Spotify is?
Right. Well, he claims that you're paying $9.99 a month for air. So, whatever. So, but then he complains about records after he gets them. But, that's kind of what we do too, right? So
yes, it is.
We love you, Steven. So
that's why you're getting the shout out.
He is. He's not going to listen to this episode.
We'll tag him.
He's going to have to go buy every album and then listen to the episode. So, I'm sorry. I'm on a roll tonight. But no, I definitely tend to judge this band's music on their cover art. So like Revolution, Mummified Skeleton. Pretty indicative of what we're going to get. Confession was just like literally like a rosary, and it was like, I don't know, kind of lame. And then One Nation Underground, cool. Kid standing there in front of a bunch of candles. Looks like he's pretty pissed off. And that's what we get. And then, you get to Enigma, a little bit more spiritual of a record, kind of more abstract cover artwork. Dead New World, it wants to be Soulfly, really bad, and it's awesome. You get to Epidemia, and it's like, hey guys, we're fucking metal, and they were, for sure. And then there's Till Death La Familia, and I'm like, it looks like the cover of a Sopranos DVD, and I'm kind of like, the fuck is this? And I kind of felt the same way about the music. So, I think all in all, this band is definitely way more good than bad. I would say that, they've got shit ton of albums. Only one of them I would say is kind of bad.
Which is the most popular?
This is just the most popular because fuck people. But I think this record is I think the final record was a little bit of a disappointment. I hope the next one is closer to Epidemia, but maybe without the band sounding like they're at war with themselves. So no, man, overall the bad definitely does not outweigh the good. I could listen to Ill Niño pretty much anytime. With the exception of Confession, I could listen to any record pretty much anytime. And it's all real. I think this band is massively underrated, and I hope that someday they really do get recognized for all the work that they did since 2001.
So Jeff, what's your album of the week?
Well, considering we've had a bit of a fusion band that we've discussed this week, it kind of made me want to go listen to something that I hadn't listened to in a while that I used to love. And that is Ozomatli, and that's their self-titled album, Ozomatli. God, that is so fucking good. Yes, it's not metal. Yes, Charlie Tuna's on it. Yes, Cut Chemist is on it, so it's more towards hip-hop and rap. But I don't give a fuck, because it's that good.
Dan, what about you?
My Dying Bride.
Oh,
Turn Loose the Swans.
way to totally outclass me. He's like, yeah, it happens every week. Well, at least the weeks that you're on.
Every day.
Today I needed a little bit of thrash, and I need a little bit of punk, and I need a little bit of pop, and I need a little bit of fun. So for me this week, my album of the week is going to be Sum 41. Does this look infected?
Nice.
It's
Yes,
false
it does.
thrash.
That's not false. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's, they get, that should be a band that we do because they get a lot of shit and not all of it's,
Pain and pleasure.
not all of it's deserved. We should do the Brown Brigade too.
So are you saying that we're all to blame, Jeff?
Oh, yeah.
So what do we have coming up for the remainder of New Metal May, Dan?
We got Primer 55 dropping next week. We got a special combo episode where we're going to do the Third Strike as well as the Fifth Element because bands with numbers in their names are awesome.
Well, Fifth Element's a great band and a fantastic movie, so.
It's got it all going for it.
So is Chris Tucker in the Fifth Element, the band?
No.
What? Why not?
And on that note, this has been episode 64 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks. $1 gets you into our exclusive Patreon feed of album reviews and other stuff.
Give me your money.